Hi guys, this is Stephen Brady Anderson, but I go by Brady, and that's probably what most of you know me by if you've had classes with me. And this is visualizing why nations fail. The setting for this data visualization project is set in 12 countries: Syria, Chad, Haiti, Philippines, Turkey, Colombia, Saudi Arabia, China, Cuba, Qatar, US, and South Korea. I chose these countries because I kind of wanted from the four categories, and I wanted them all to be as geographically diverse as possible. So, like for example, in the first category, I did Syria, Chad, and Haiti, and those are all from different continents and have very different geographies. So I'd try to keep a similar trend like that going for the for the other groups, and I'm just using the variables that were provided to us on the Fragile States Index sheet. The first hypothesis is the economic one. That's put forth by the authors, just in it essentially is centered around the idea that around inclusive and extractive institutions and how successful states are built around inclusive institutions. To operationalize this hypothesis, I created two different figures, and I compared a nation's economic indicator score and its fragile state value index score and its economic inequality score. These are the two charts. Under this hypothesis, the political hypothesis, the authors are hypotheses similar to the economics one that nations' political institutions, specifically whether they are extractive or inclusive, can fundamentally shift whether a state succeeds or not, or is considered fragile. Um, to operationalize this, I first examined how a nation's public services compares with their state legitimacy score, and I did this comparison because I theorized that states with better public services, better infrastructure will be viewed as more legitimate. And then for the second figure, I compared their fragile states value and the state legitimacy score. These are the charts, and I'll just let it sit on the screen for a few seconds. Third hypothesis is one that I kind of came up with, and it's centered around stability or instability. And I theorize that states where there is a significant amount of instability would lead to a more fragile state. To operationalize this, I compared fragile states value to the human flight and brain drain variable. And for the second figure, I compare the fragile states value to the refugee and internally displaced persons variable. And I believe that this one specifically can also be used more technically by states as well. By it can be a potential warning indicator per se for states if variables such as human flight and brain drain continue to decrease. I think that the graphs could show a potential relationship with that, so it could be a warning sign for them. And here are the graphs. To draw some tentative conclusions for the first one, the economic hypothesis, I believe that you could draw a tentative conclusion that if an economy is performing well and has inclusive institutions, in general, a state would be less fragile. I believe that in figure one, we can somewhat eyeball it, and you can kind of see that there could be a relationship between the two. And for the figure two, I think that there could be a causal relationship, but it is a bit less clear. So I'm not comfortable having a verdict on whether there is a relationship or not. For the second hypothesis, I did the political one. I do not believe that we could draw a conclusion on whether there is a relationship between state fragility and their political institutions, specifically with state legitimacy variable. I think for figure one, it was generally consistent, but there were some outliers such as China, Cuba, and Qatar that led me to be like to led me that to not be fully comfortable with declaring that there is a relationship between those two variables. And for the second figure, I do not believe it's the same thing. I don't believe that beyond a doubt that there is or that the visualization shows that there is a relationship between state fragility and state legitimacy. For the third hypothesis, the stability instability one, I believe that we could draw a general tentative conclusion that in general states that have a low amount of brain drain, human flight, refugees leaving the country, and internally displaced persons, that the state will be less fragile. And I think that you can kind of especially see that through a potential lack of innovation and diversity that comes with those variables decreasing. That could lead to a state being considered more fragile. Um, and that's kind of that's my presentation. And here are just the links to the images that I used. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you.